So this week what we're going to do is we're going to do an intro to Lightroom. Now, there's a lot of Lightroom to learn, but what I want to do, or my goal here tonight, is to get you guys comfortable with some of the basics of Lightroom. And then what I'll do as we move forward, I will put together another Lightroom class that's going to be a little bit more in the way of features and things like that. So what we're going to do is we're going to go over just some of the basics of Lightroom, getting your pictures in, some of the differences in how Lightroom handles your pictures, and so forth. One thing I do want to mention, if you guys are calling in and you want to interact that way, that's great. But do me a favor, because sometimes we get a lot of background noise. So if you can mute the call, you'll still be able to hear me, but if you want to interact, then just unmute and you can ask me a question. Now, as I go through this, if you guys would like to ask me questions, you're more than welcome to. And like I said, you can either type them in, or if you've called in, you can ask me over the line here. If it's something that I think we're going to be getting to, I'll let you know. If it's something that gets me off on a little bit of a tangent, then we'll try to answer all your questions as best we can. As best I can. So a couple things I want to hit on real quick before we get started, and I don't know if you guys had the chance to take a look at it was about a 15 or so minute video that I put up yesterday on Lightroom and the Lightroom and the Photoshop bundle that Adobe has to offer. It gives you a little bit more information on how that subscription service works and the benefits of it. And the other thing that I touched on a little bit, and this is something I'm going to touch on quite a bit as we go through both Lightroom and Photoshop, and that is the discussion of using a graphics tablet. There's a couple of different brands out there, but kind of the standard in the industry is the Wacom or Wacom, W-A-C-O-M tablet. And in that little short video that I posted up yesterday, it gives you some of the differences between the different types that they have, and some of the features that each of them have. And definitely the biggest thing is the advantage of using a tablet, both from the artistic side of things and for the ergonomic side of things. I mentioned in the video that I've suffered from carpal tunnel syndrome and tendonitis, and it would limit me quite a bit into how much I could work with a mouse. Once I started using the tablet, I found that I could work for longer periods of time, being more productive and dealing with a lot less pain. So it's something that I definitely recommend. And if you guys haven't checked out that video, jump over to the YouTube page and again search illumination classes, and that'll get you to the page. And again, if you guys want, you can subscribe to that page, and anytime I put any updates or anything like that, you should get notices based on that. So a couple of things that I just wanted to touch on too before we get started is once the classes are over with, you can reach me either through Facebook and the group that we have, or that I have, called the training group, or as you can see on my screen, I've got an email address, illuminationclasses@gmail.com, and you can drop me an email there at any time. And I usually stay on top of the stuff and try to get answers to you guys as quickly as I can. If there's something I need to research a little bit, I'll research it and I'll let you know, and then I'll get back to you guys. Couple of things in regards to what you guys are shooting and how you guys are shooting out in the field is going to determine some of the ways that you use Lightroom. Okay. Now Lightroom is very photography centric. And the idea behind Lightroom is anybody who's come from the age of film, which is my background. It's set up for photographers. So if you've worked in a dark room and you've really worked a lot with your camera in manual mode and things like that, Lightroom tries to build that same sort of dynamic in a software version of a darkroom. So that's basically what Lightroom is geared towards. A couple of things about Lightroom, because I know some people use Lightroom only. Some people use Photoshop only. Some people will use On1 and a couple of other programs to edit their photos as well. In the video that I posted yesterday, I mentioned the Photographies bundle that Adobe has, and it includes both Lightroom and Photoshop. One of the reasons that I like the way the two work is because they work very well together. There's quite a bit you can do in Lightroom. I still have a tendency, because I've been using Photoshop a lot longer than I've used Lightroom, so I do have a tendency to do more of my heavy lifting in Photoshop. And quite frankly, there are things that you can do in Photoshop that you just can't do in Lightroom. Some things are done better, even though you can perform some specific edits. For instance, skin softening you can do in Lightroom, but there's actually better and more natural ways to do it inside of Photoshop. So down the line, when I do a Photoshop class, I will be more combining how to effectively use both Lightroom and Photoshop together in order to get a full, good, solid edit out of your photos. Now I'm hoping that pretty much everybody out there is shooting in RAW when they shoot their stuff. That's probably my biggest piece of advice at this point in time, is to definitely shoot RAW, no matter what camera you're using. If your camera is capable of shooting in RAW, the reason is RAW is the closest thing to a negative that you would get out of film. It's pretty much unprocessed. They add what your camera adds as far as white balance and things like that. That's pretty much all the processing that goes on. Now, when you shoot a JPEG, there's a lot more processing that goes on, because there's a lot of things that you're not able to do in Lightroom as a standard rule. But I'm going to show you guys a couple of little tricks that might help you out if you are shooting in JPEG. But for the most part, I really emphasize that you guys shoot in RAW, because you can get, the way that Lightroom processes is it gives you a wider window to adjust things like exposure, bringing out shadows, so on and so forth, and not overly affect your image. So RAW is the thing. And it offers you some advantages, some definite advantages as far as some presets and things like that. But then, like I said, if you're working with JPEGs, you can kind of cheat those presets a little bit, and I'm going to show you guys a couple of tricks for that. What I want to do is I want to kind of get you guys familiar with the interface of Lightroom. I'm not going to bog you guys down with every little detail of Lightroom. What I'd like to do at this point in time is I'd like to get you to the point of editing your images, and to the point of being able to import and sort out your images, and do some basic editing and a few other little odds and ends that will get you guys started in Lightroom. And these are the things that I think are probably the top things that that I would probably use in Lightroom. Like I said, there's a lot you can do in Lightroom. There's a lot that you can't do in Lightroom. So I want to give you some of the differences as far as that goes. Now, if you're using Lightroom and Photoshop together, I've seen some things that were a little disheartening, I guess would probably be the best word, when it comes to working in both Photoshop and Lightroom. You can round trip between Lightroom and Photoshop and keep up the quality of your images. What I've seen some people do is they'll take a shot out of Lightroom, they'll go into Photoshop, they'll do whatever it is they're going to do in Photoshop, whether it's retouching or skin softening or a variety of other edits. They'll save it out as a JPEG, come back into Lightroom, re-import that photo, and then continue to work on it in Lightroom. Now, I don't generally round trip like that, where I'll go out into Photoshop and then come back into Lightroom and continue to work on something. For me, it's usually Lightroom, Photoshop, and then when I save it, it comes back into Lightroom. So that's kind of the round trip. If you're going to do that, there's a much better way of doing that than saving it as a JPEG, because the minute you save that as a JPEG and you start working on it again in Lightroom, it's going to degrade that image. So I'm going to give you guys a quick little route to round trip between Lightroom and Photoshop as well, because I think it's something that's real important. I know a couple of people use the On1 suite. I do as well. I, however, use it as a plug-in to Photoshop and Lightroom. Mostly I use it out of Photoshop. I think I've used it once or twice out of Lightroom, but again, since I'm more acclimated to Photoshop, I automatically go to Photoshop for everything. So it, there's 1,000 ways to skin a cat. So you pick what's best for you. What I'll do is I'll show you a workflow that I usually use, and when it comes to Photoshop, I also use a specific workflow. And if you find a workflow that works for you, it's nice because it speeds up your process, because you know what you're going to do next. You know what you're going to start off by doing, retouching, and then maybe do some level adjustments, so on and so forth. Same thing here in Lightroom. The two modules that I work in Lightroom, and the modules are up here in the upper left-hand or upper right-hand corner, excuse me. The two modules that I mostly work in are the library module and the develop module. The map module is if you're doing geotagging and things like that. The book module is if you're going to be putting together a like a coffee table book or an album, something along those lines. You can build slideshows out of Lightroom. You can print, and I'll touch on printing just a little bit here in Lightroom, and then web output, so you can put together web galleries and things like that. I'm not going to put a lot of time into those, if any. Probably the only one I'm really going to put any time into is print. I'm going to let you guys discover that on your own, because everybody's output is going to be a little bit different to what your ultimate goal is, whether it's printing out for clients or yourself, or if you're going to be posting these on the web, or if you're going to be making slideshows out of them. I'm going to kind of encourage you guys, if you guys are going in that direction, to sort of work through that, work through those sections on your own. My goal here is to really get you guys editing and understanding the process inside of Lightroom and how things work. Okay, so a couple of things you'll notice too, and I'm not sure if anybody's used Photoshop and has opened a RAW file. A lot of times it will open up Camera Raw say you're in Photoshop and you shot a raw file, you open up that raw file inside of Photoshop, a window will pop up and it'll say Camera Raw. Camera Raw and Lightroom share a lot of the same features. It looks different, the interface is different, but a lot of the features that are in Camera Raw are a lot of the features that are in Lightroom when it comes to processing. So exposure, contrast, highlights, shadows, whites, so on and so forth, those kind of things are in Camera Raw. Along with being an editing program here in Lightroom, it's also a really great cataloging program. I know a lot of people use Adobe Bridge, and my philosophy about Adobe Bridge is that there is a reason it's free. You kind of get what you pay for. One of the other things that I want to let you guys know right off the bat here too is I had a couple questions during the course of the last week in regards to versions of Lightroom that are currently available. Adobe just made Lightroom available as part of their Creative Cloud suite, and their latest version is Lightroom CC. They also have an off-the-shelf version that you can purchase, and it is called Lightroom 6. Couple of differences between the two. One being that Lightroom has now fallen under the Creative Cloud. Any updates or upgrades to the program will automatically be available to you as they come out. Now, Adobe has probably, since I've been with the cloud, has probably made major updates or upgrades in about a 6-month period. I believe this is probably going to be one of the last iterations of Lightroom that you can buy, it being Lightroom 6. Now, one of the biggest, couple of the biggest differences is, one, Lightroom 6, if they'll do bug fixes and things like that, but anything that's a major upgrade or a version upgrade or anything like that, chances are they're going to stop at Lightroom 6. I also use a tablet. I use an iPad, and within the iPad, and now since they came out with Lightroom CC, they also came out with Lightroom Mobile for both Android and iOS. I think you have to have, in the Android side of things, you have to have, I believe it'll be running Lollipop. And on the iOS side of things, in both cases, they have them either for phone or for a tablet, so you can do either or. Nice thing about that is you can be out in the field, you can make changes and do some editing to your photos, and if you're on the cloud service, then it will allow you. What it'll do is once you make your adjustments, it will upload to the cloud and it'll come back down to your desktop. So when you get home, after you've synced your photos, when you get home, basically what ends up happening is all the adjustments you made while you were at your mom's house will be waiting for you and available. So it gives you a really good advantage as far as having those extra editing tools. I use it quite a bit out in the field, especially with clients and things like that, and then start making adjustments there. When I get home, my adjustments are done and I'm good. So Lightroom CC offers that. Lightroom 6 does not offer that. And Lightroom Mobile, if you are part of the Creative Cloud, Lightroom Mobile does come as a free app. And like I said, because of the difference between Lightroom 6 and Lightroom CC, Lightroom 6 does not support Lightroom Mobile. So those of you who are mobile users, that's kind of another advantage. And there's obviously a cost savings. And again, if you go back and look at that video, I get a little bit more into detail on that. Like I said, inside of Lightroom, getting ahead of myself. inside of Lightroom, like I said, the two modules that I use the most are the library module and the develop module. Now, there are a couple of things that they've done over time that make these a lot simpler to use and a little bit more direct to use in some cases, and you'll understand that as I start explaining this. So let's start off with the library module. Now, the library module, basically what that is that's a way to get in, get your photographs in. It's a way to organize your photographs. It's a way to keep everything where you need it, where you want to find it. And there's a couple of different ways of doing it. You have folders, which if you look over here on the top right or top left, you can import all of your folders into Lightroom, and you can have a long list of folders. One of the better ways to do that is to work inside of collections. One of the things that Lightroom just introduced is a way to automatically add your pictures to collections. So you don't have to go into folders, import everything, figure out what you want, and then move it over to a collection. You can do it straight from the import module. Now, one of the other things that I like to stress a lot is organization. When I put together a project, if I'm doing a shoot, I have a folder that I make that is specific to that shoot. Inside that folder, I put another folder in there that holds all of my raw files. I put another folder in there that holds my my Photoshop finals, so everything that's edited goes into that folder. And then I have an output folder, which is usually a JPEG folder, so I'm either doing high resolution or low resolution JPEGs depending on what I'm doing with them. So that's kind of the folder structure that I use. Generally, what I tell people to do as a practice is to transfer your files off of your camera before you even open up Lightroom. So making a folder, taking your SD card out of your camera, plugging it into your computer, and then transferring everything over. Now, it's up to you. I usually, when I transfer my stuff, I usually automatically put it in two places. I'll put it on two different drives, either a local drive and an external drive, or an external drive and an external drive. So I always have a backup of what I'm doing. So I kind of do that automatically. Once you've transferred your folders into, or your photos into a folder, then you can go ahead, open up Lightroom, and start that process. And of course, like I said, when it comes to how things are set up here. Now, one of the things that's new in the latest version of Lightroom is a slightly different way of being able to import your photos. One of the things that I mentioned, like I said, on the very top here, you have a tab called Folders. Just down from that, you're going to see another tab called Collections. Now, the kind of old way of doing it was you would bring all of your folders in, and then and you'd bring all of your pictures in. If you look down here on the very bottom, I've got a film strip full of pictures, and I may not want to use all of these. So what I would do is I would take these and I would put them into a collection, and just kind of hone things down a little bit. And then within a collection, you can have a collection group, and then you can have sub-collections, so on and so forth. So you can really pare things down. In this case, in this version, in the newer version of Lightroom, the nice thing is you can bypass the process of importing everything into a folder, and then you can start importing it into a selection, or to a collection, I'm sorry, into a collection. So, real easy to do, okay? So, again, like I said, over here we have collections. We're in the library module. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click down here on the lower right hand side, or lower left hand side, excuse me, on the import button. Okay, what that's going to do, it's going to bring me to the import window, which looks like that. And I'm gonna close this chat window just for a moment here. Okay, now I went ahead and I just threw a couple of pictures into a folder on my desktop. So I'm not going to be, usually when I do a shoot, I'll do between 100 and 500 shots. So I don't want to bore you guys with that. So over here on the on the left-hand side, you have your source, and you can select a source. So if you've placed your folders on an external drive, or your photos on an external drive, then you can go ahead and navigate to that external drive and bring those things up. Now, the folder that I picked, I just threw it on my desktop. Right now I'm calling it Class Picks Lightroom, or LR Lightroom. And when I click on that, it's going to come up with these 6 pictures that I've got in here. They're all checked. If you look here on the bottom of each picture, it gives me the file number, and it also gives me the extension. Now, I shoot Nikon. Some of these are RAW files, so Nikon's extension is NEF for a RAW file. And forgive me, because off the top of my head I can't remember Canon's, but it is a different extension. And then you can also see I've got a couple of JPEG images in here that I shot as well. So I can check these on or check these off if I want to, if I do or don't want to import them. So this right here is your first level, can be your first level of sorting out your pictures. Now I can choose to just import these into a folder, but what I want to do is I want to start off being a little bit more organized, so I'm going to import them to a collection. So you look through here, you see your pictures, you pick and choose the ones you want, you uncheck the ones you don't want, you check the ones you do want. In this case, I'm going to check all of my pictures. And then if you go over here to the right side, there's a couple of options here for you to kind of look at. Usually these top couple, I keep these turned off. At this point, it doesn't really do much to help you. I usually keep don't import selected or suspected duplicates. So if you have, say you've moved some pictures over from one folder to another, you've copied and pasted them from one folder to the other, Lightroom will tell you that that picture already exists in your catalog. However, if you needed to, you could right click on that and you could check import this, and it would import that as a duplicate picture. Okay, now here's the important one. Well, let me go down here before I hit this. Develop settings. So if you have presets, you can see down here there's a bunch of presets that Lightroom has, and basically as you import a picture, it will allow you to apply any of those presets. Again, something I don't deal with. Metadata, it's when you import your pictures, it's going to give you the basic metadata that you have, which is going to be your camera type. It's going to show you your aperture, your shutter speed, whether you're flash fired, so on and so forth. But you can also add keywords to this if you'd like. So under metadata, you can either select none. They have some presets. They've got a new preset that you can put in. Say if you want to add in your copyright. You can edit existing presets. Now I don't do a lot of this at import, because generally most people who do this, a lot of them are having somebody else edit their photos, so they want to be able to have that metadata in there to keep their copyright and so on and so forth. Since I do all my own editing, I don't even worry about it. Now the big one that I want to highlight for you guys, and this is something that's new in Photoshop or in Lightroom, is add to collection. Okay. Now, as I mentioned before, collection is a good way to hone down your photos and make sure you get rid of the ones you don't want, or add to the ones that add the ones you do want. So it gives you, like I said, your first level of sorting things out. After that, there's a couple of other ways that I'm going to show you guys how else you can kind of tag these photos and hone them down even more. So if I add to collection, okay, and this is the other thing too about adding it to or having a collection. If you have Lightroom CC and you have Lightroom Mobile for your tablet device or your phone, the only way to be able to sync the two is if your photos are in a collection. So they have to be in a collection to be able to sync back and forth between your computer and whatever device you are using. So again, this takes and eliminates one step from having to do that if you want to transfer these things over to your mobile device. So I want to add these to a collection, and you can see these are all the collections that I have on my computer currently. And what I want to do is I want to add a new collection. So I'll create a new collection, and I'll call this Lightroom Class, LR Class. I spelled that right. Okay. Now you got a couple of check marks. One, if you have a collection set, say you're doing, say you've got a couple of SD cards and you've done some travel photography and you've got 2 SD cards full of stuff that you shot in Washington State. Okay, you can create a collection set called Washington State, and then put as many collections in there as you'd like. And then what you could do is, as you import more collections from that particular state, Washington State would be your collection set, then you can say, you can click on Inside Collection Set, and then it will allow you to navigate to the collection set that you've created. So Washington Trip 2015 is your collection set. And then you've got several others as several other pictures within there off a couple of SD cards that you want to bring into that collection set. Okay, so that's if you're going to do that. Now, 2 down here, options. One is called Set as Target Collection. Now, I'm going to explain this in just a little bit because setting it as a target collection set was more valid before Lightroom came up with this feature of Add to Collection, and it was a way to be able to go through your folder of pictures. If you remember, and I'll show it to you guys again in the library module, there was a folder section, and it would allow you to just go through your photos, hit a shortcut key, that being the letter B as in boy, and then you set a target collection. So again, if you're Washington State and you're taking pictures of the Space Needle, you can add a collection called Space Needle, set that as your default collection, go through your pictures that are all of your pictures in your folders, and say you've got, out of 100 shots, you have 20 that you want to go into that Space Needle collection. And then you would make that your default or your target collection, and as you go through your pictures, you hit the letter B, and it will put those pictures into that target collection. I'll show you how that works here in just a minute. Now, the last one here is the Sync with Lightroom Mobile. Now, I haven't looked at Lightroom 6, so I'm guessing it probably doesn't have this option. In Lightroom CC, it does. So you can choose if you want this available to you on your either your Android device or your iOS device. You would go ahead and check Sync with Lightroom Mobile. When you do that, Lightroom will ask you on the main screen to sign into your Creative Cloud account, and again, those pictures get uploaded through the cloud and then right back down to your device, and vice versa when you come back. So I'll show you that in just a second. So I want to go ahead and I want to sync these with my Lightroom Mobile because I do have a Lightroom Mobile account. Again, I'm naming my collection Lightroom Class, and then I just hit create. Now you can see over here on the right hand side it creates that for me, and then I can come down here and click on import. So it tells me that everything's imported. Now my collections, you can see over here now, are on the left hand side, and there's my Lightroom class right here, and as soon as he's finished processing in, so they all come in. Now if you look to the very far left here, you're going to see kind of this double arrow, and if I hover over it, it says click to stop syncing this collection with Lightroom Mobile. Okay, so once I imported those, again, if you look on the right hand side or on the left hand side, you see Lightroom classes, and that's where my new collection is here. Okay, again, you see this little double arrow. This double arrow indicates, again, over here on the left side, it indicates that I am syncing to Lightroom Mobile. So if I were to go to my iOS device right now, call up Lightroom Mobile, I will see this collection in there, and it will be called Lightroom Classes or LR Classes, and all of my pictures are going to be in there. So I can start working on them if I'm out in the field. So the other thing I wanted to mention too, like I said, if you're using Lightroom CC, if you look up here in the upper left hand corner, you're going to see that I've got my name here, and there's a little drop down arrow, and it says sync with Lightroom Mobile, address lookup if I'm going to be sending. There's a couple of other things that you can that are new features that I haven't gotten quite into yet, but this is where you would pretty much sync with your Lightroom Mobile. If your name is not up here, and again, if you have the CC version of it, of Lightroom, there'll be a menu item up here that will ask you to sign into your Creative Cloud account, and then at that point you can start syncing things. Now, if you bring a collection into Lightroom, and if you don't want to sync it, one, you could uncheck the box that says sync to Lightroom Mobile on the import process, or you can stop the sync if you right click. So in this case, I'm right clicking on the LR classes. You would actually, what you do is you would just uncheck sync with Lightroom Mobile. So they actually used to have a menu item that said don't sync with Lightroom Mobile. But if you don't want to sync something, then you can uncheck that, and then it will basically, for all intents and purposes, it'll take it off of Lightroom Mobile. So so pretty much that's how you bring it in as a collection. And again, it's a really good way to determine what you, like I said, it's like a first round of getting stuff more sorted out for yourself. Now, the other thing that I mentioned is that you can also make any of your collections a target collection. So again, if I right click on my LR classes folder, what I can do is I can come down here and say set as target collection. So if I wanted to add, and I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to set that, and you can see there's a little plus sign right there, and that tells me that it's a target collection. So if I want to go to one of my folders, let me go down here, and I want to add, let's see, I want to add something, a couple of shots to that collection, okay, and I'm gonna change my view. And the way that you change your view here is you have grid view, which is selected by default. I can come over here to loop view, and it will give me a full screen. That's a nice shot, completely blown out. So I can go to any of these shots that I have here, and if I want to add that to my target collection that I have set as a target collection, you can see down here I have this this particular shot highlighted, and all I do is I hit the letter B, again B for boy, on my keyboard, and it'll tell me add to target collection. And if you saw, it came up pretty quick. But if I go back to my Lightroom classes target, you can see I had 6 shots in there, now I have 7. So if I go back here, it has added, if you look down here in the bottom, or if I go back into grid view, it added that shot that I just selected into my target collection. Okay, you can also drag and drop into any target collection as well, but this is just a quicker, easier way to do it. And again, because I have syncing on to Lightroom Mobile, you can see down here on the new picture that I just added, I've got that same syncing icon here. So again, this will automatically sync to Lightroom Mobile for me. Okay, any questions at this point? Everybody follow me pretty well? Okay, good. So those are some of the basic, but probably most important ways to organize your shots. You can delve in a little bit deeper when it comes to that as well. You've got different ways of marking these shots as well. You have over here, if you again look kind of in the lower left hand part of the screen where my mouse is, you're going to see a couple of flags down here. You can flag a picture as a pick, so you pick that picture, choose that picture that you like. You can use a star rating, okay, up to a 5-star rating. And the other one, which is not viewable up here, and I think I have it turned off, is label, and it puts a color label on it. Now, and I got to look at my note here real quick because this is something that changed. If you want to use if you want to flag one of your pictures, you hit the letter P to pick it, the letter U to unpick it, and the letter X to reject it. And again, this is just a way to kind of keep track of the ones that you want to keep tracks of the one that you want to edit, or however you want to do this. Now, with the star ratings, numbers 0 through 5 will give you whatever your star rating is. So if I'm looking at my shot and say I want to rate this a 4, you can see it popped up real quick, set rating to 4, and you can see I've got 4 stars here. If I decide, you know what, maybe that's not the best shot in the world, I kind of want to keep it, but not too sure, so I'm going to take that down to a 2-star rating. So all I do is I hit 2 on my keyboard, and you can see it set my rating to 2. If I want to take my stars away, I hit whatever that rating is, so 2 through 5 or 1 through 5. If I hit the number 2 again, actually, I believe you set it to 0, or you hit the number 0, and that will take all of your stars away. Now the labels are 6 through 9, and those are colored labels. That for me is not the best way to kind of keep track of your pictures. I think either a star rating or a pick is probably the 2 better ways to continue to organize your shots. So that gives you a couple of different ways to get your shots in, and a couple of different ways to organize them. So again, just a real quick recap. First bit of advice is take your pictures off your camera and put them onto a hard drive and maybe an external drive. Go with the philosophy, if it doesn't exist in 2 places, it doesn't exist at all. So put those in 2 places, and that's even before you get into Lightroom. Open up Lightroom, go to your import, navigate to that folder, pick and choose your shots by checking or unchecking. If you want to bring them into a collection, then go ahead and hit Add Collections, hit the plus sign, drop your name of your collection in, click on Import, and then those will get imported. When you come into the main library of Lightroom. Again, you can see your collections over here. You can set your collection as a target collection, so if you want to add things from other folders, it's probably the easiest way to do that. So if you're in another folder and you want to add another shot to this particular collection, you find the shot, hit the letter B. Because you set this as a target collection, it will automatically go into that collection. And then finally, if you want to hone down your pictures even more to the ones you want to edit, the ones you think you want to edit, the ones you really want to edit, you can either use the flagging system or the star system, or if you're so inclined, the label system. So any questions about importing? I think pretty much makes sense to you. Good. Okay, so we got our pictures in here. Now what are we going to do with them? Well, we're going to start editing them. Now again, I'm not sure how many of you use Photoshop as well, and how many of you just use Lightroom. Yes, it is the exact same process in Lightroom 6, minus the mobile stuff. So, good question. So I definitely want to keep that clear, because there is definitely such a huge difference in some cases between Lightroom 6 and Lightroom CC. And again, this is why I kind of encourage you guys to look into the bundle. If you've made the investment, and I'm not sure, depending on what you might, if you're interested, and I'm just going to throw this out there, but if you're interested and you just purchased Lightroom 6, what you might want to do is give Adobe a call and maybe talk to their sales team and see if there's a way that you can, I don't know if they'll give you a refund or if they'll credit you, or what they might do. Now, this is just me talking, so I'm not sure what their policies are. But if you're interested in moving over to Lightroom CC, and if you do it within a reasonable amount of time, they may do something for you. I can't tell you either way. I've pretty much stuck with Creative Cloud since it came out. At CS6 is when the Creative Cloud actually started. So I've been with them ever since, so I'm not sure what their policies would be as far as that's concerned. So you might want to check with them if you're so inclined. So I'll just throw that out there. So now in the library module, again, once we start in, after we've imported our pictures and everything, like I said, you got a couple of different views down here. You've got your grid view, as I mentioned, which gives you, and if you have tons of pictures in here, your grid view is going to be more populated. If you look down here where it says thumbnails, again, kind of in the lower right hand of the screen, you can use the slider to change the size of your thumbnails. I don't use it that much because I usually end up working straight into loop view, which shows me my pictures individually, because if once they're imported, I'm in editing mode, so I'm not going to want to look at a film strip on my or a grid on the main part of my screen. So I'll usually switch over here to loop view, and then I can start working with my shots individually, and start editing those individually. So again, this is my workflow, and hopefully it makes some sense to you, and you can adjust it however you want. It's up to you. Now, if you look over here on the right hand side, I want to kind of go over this from the top. Now, if you've worked in Photoshop, and if you're working in Lightroom, I believe if you're working in the On1 suite, because I know there's at least one of us. Well, I use the On1 suite, but other than me, I know there's one other person that uses On1, which is a really great suite, by the way. They have a lot of very, very cool things, and it's very Photoshop-esque in a lot of ways. But one of the things you're going to notice right off the very top, which is right here at the top, is what's called the histogram. Now, those of you with digital SLR cameras, when you're reviewing your pictures, I know on the Nikon, if you take their little selection wheel and you click once on the down arrow side of it, you can change your view in your LED screen or LCD screen to actually show a histogram. Basically what the histogram is it shows you tonal range of a shot. Okay, everything to the left are your blacks, everything to the right are your whites. So if you look, for instance, if you look at this first shot that I have up here, you can see that my whites are pretty low to non-existent. Okay, now as I make changes to this, you'll see that histogram change a little bit. The same with blacks. I can increase or decrease my blacks, and this will be affected. The middle of it are going to be your mid-tones. So grayish is considered mid-tones. So this is pretty much for looking at tonal range and everything. So it's more of a guide for you. If you want to get good exposure and things like that, it's a little bit more of a guide for you to follow, as opposed to an adjustment tool. Now, in this case, there are obviously adjustments I'm going to make to this shot, and there's a couple of ways to do that. Now, you have inside, again, I'm in the library module. I'm going to move this over here so it's out of the way. I'm in the library module still, so you can see I'm in the library, and I have some quick develop settings. So if I turn this down, there we go. They've got presets here. They've got some white balance stuff here. They've got some tone control. They've got some exposure settings and a few other things. Now, again, as personal preference, I don't use quick develop. Mostly because when I get ready to edit something, I'm pretty much ready to dig into it and start editing. So I don't want to really mess around with any of the quick develop stuff. Couple of the other things they have in here is keywording. So you can put tags in here for yourself. If you want to do a search, say you've got 100 different pictures of the Queen Mary, and you can put Queen Mary in here, and then you can say, I want to search for Queen Mary, type it in, all of your Queen Mary pictures will come up. So you can add keywords and things like that. Now, I'm pretty sloppy at this, so this is kind of a do as I say, not as I do sort of a thing. I don't keyword a lot of things. I'm blessed with a pretty good memory, so every shoot that I do, even if I haven't seen it for quite a while, I can pretty much still track down what I need to track down. Eventually, I'm sure my memory will go to the point where I have to start using keywords to be able to track my stuff down. But for the meantime, I'm going to kind of stick with what I got. So, so these are some things that you can do in the quick developer in the library module. The other thing I want to point out also is if you look again right directly under the histogram, I've got the ISO setting of the camera that I used, the lens or the focal length, the f-stop, and the shutter speed. So this gives you just kind of a quick heads-up view as to what you shot and how you shot it. On this particular shot, I was using an external flash, so that's why it doesn't show if a flash fired or not. I believe if you use a flash on your camera and it fires, it would probably indicate it up here as well. Okay, so that's kind of the library module. The library module is strictly for you to organize and import your photos, rate your photos if you'd like, set them up in collections, and again, you can see that I've at the very top here, they look like little bank boxes if you look over here on the left under collections. That's a collection set. Okay, it looks like a little bank box. Down here are the collections. They look a little bit more like folders. So if I have a collection set, you can see I've got a turn down arrow. That means there chances are I have different collections within that folder. I don't remember putting any collections in these folders, so I'm not sure why they have turn down menus. There's probably stuff like, let's see. Oh, so I've got a folder in there that's called iPhone photos. So that would be all the photos that were from my iPhone that that Lightroom Mobile transferred over for me to my Lightroom on my desktop. So again, another advantage if you've taken, you would set up a collection inside of Lightroom Mobile that has your, and you can pick and choose your, you know, if you've taken pictures with your camera phone or your tablet camera or whatever, it will throw those in there, and it will automatically set up a Lightroom Mobile collection set, and then it'll put those folders inside of there. So another way to get your photos out of your mobile device and into Lightroom for further editing, if you so choose. So that's pretty much the library module. Now, the big important module is going to be the develop module. Let's see, how are we doing here? Before we get into the develop module, let's go ahead and take a quick 10-minute break, because now we're going to get into some heavy lifting here. So I want you guys to go get some coffee, wake up, run around the house. If it's cold outside, go wake yourself up in the cold, whatever. And then we'll come back at about 10 after the hour. I'm not sure where everybody's from, so I have to use generic terms. We'll come back about 10 after the hour, and we will start digging into the develop module. Sound good?